does a democratized human rights framework look like to you in practice?
And for starters, when I think of the word democracy and human rights, I think there's two elements that I would draw attention to. I think the first one is democracy denotes the idea of human dignity for me, right? Acknowledging and recognizing individuals' human dignity. And then the second part I would add to is recognizing that everyone has human dignity in the context of recognizing our intersectional identities. So I'd argue that, and I would want to draw attention to the fact that when we're talking about democracy and human rights, we're talking about acknowledging and recognizing people's human dignity, and at the same time recognizing that dignity in difference. And by doing so, we're able to capture what human rights and democracy can do.
Awesome. And then just building off of that, how has existing frameworks for interpreting democracy and/or human rights shaped your current research?
So for me, my research is in children and youth rights.
Right.
And so there's a theory by John Wall and Tanu Biswas called childism. And what childism asks us to do, it asks us to look out into the world and recognize the ways in which the world is shaped by norms and values that are adults. And so if we're thinking about what childism can do for us in the context of human rights and democracy, one of the things that we want to establish is in which ways are children and youth made marginalized from democracy. So for instance, if we think about citizenship, the traditional concept of citizenship is very adult-centric, it's very binary. What I mean by that is citizenship is based upon rationality. Who's oftentimes denied rationality? Children and youth.
Right.
So what's really important is we need to shift from a traditional concept of citizenship to one that is difference-centered. Children's and youth citizenship shouldn't be based upon an adult notion of citizenship. It should be rooted in that different identity, that difference that children and youth life worlds have. So to recognize that, what childism provides us with, we can then move into this idea of deliberative democracy. What is deliberative democracy all about? It's about the ability to reason. It's the ability to engage in conversations and learn from individuals. We can reconceptualize citizenship to include children, and by reconceptualizing citizenship to include children, they can participate more actively in deliberative democracy. By engaging more in deliberative democracy, what we can see is the voice of children and youth. It can lead us to not only including more people, which deliberative democracy asks us to include. Childism tells us that there's over 2 billion youth in the world, and we're marginalizing those youth. And then the second thing is we can engage in more long-term thinking. And if our public policies are designed around more long-term thinking, taking into account that children and youth will live longer than adults, we can have much more effective public policy for everybody.
Awesome. And then one more question for you. What further steps or innovations would you like to see at the nexus of human rights and democratic practices?
So to try to convey some practical elements to this theoretical discussion and this reconceptualizing of citizenship and deliberative democracy, I can just bring three very quick ones. And one would, let's look at children and youth in the context of schools, where they live, they experience a lot of their lives. To what extent are children and youth actually agenda setters and able to contribute to what's going on in their schools? Let's look at something like children and youth parliaments. Children and youth parliaments can be very effective for socialization to teach children and youth about politics and democracy. But what if children and youth parliaments operated hand in hand and acted as a direct conduit to national parliaments? Then we can incorporate the voices of children and youth. And then finally, I'd make an argument to the extent globally. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children has an optional Protocol 3. What this optional Protocol 3 is, it's the opportunity for children and youth to bring rights violations all the way to the United Nations. And if they're able to do that, then they're able to make their states recognize their rights at the global level, and in so doing, they can fight for their rights a little bit more effectively. So the practical implications of children and youth democracy can come about through reconceptualizing our norms around citizenship, challenging the adult-centric nature of what citizenship consists of, and in so doing, we're able to create a more holistic, inclusive democracy that recognizes the human dignity of children and youth. It recognizes their distinct identity and life worlds at the stage that they're at.
That's absolutely fascinating. Awesome. Dustin, thank you so much for your participation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.